This is a big part of what's happening on your world as you integrate your higher selves, meaning your fifth dimensional identity. So that's the way we put it. That's the story we're telling right now, that all of you are in that process of breathing into your chakra systems, the fullness of your beingness as your higher selves. As you do that, then your higher selves begin to rewrite your genetic codes, and they overwrite those programs that tell you you're enslaved. You then access your sovereign state, and this is how all your systems on your world are going to change. It's not a matter of going in and fixing what appears to be broken.
Right.
We would say let all that breakage fall away. Let all of those systems that have become inoperable, that you're all still trying to operate, let them fall away and allow the higher selves to help you all birth into your reality higher vibrational versions of all of those systems. Education, government, transportation, fuel, on and on and on and on. So we're speaking in a very third dimensional way now. And as you integrate and reascend and move into a higher interpretation of this reality, you're still going to run some of those systems. They're just going to look very different.
So in a way, the same way we're breathing in, reprogramming the DNA, reprogram the entire world with the new this new higher self energy. So the world would be channeling the higher self in a way?
Yes, and Earth is
Okay.
doing exactly the same. You are doing this in tandem with Earth.
I see.
And the most important work any of you can do is your own internal work. Because the outside is the reflection of the inner.
Right.
So as you alter internally, you will pull that external reflection to you. You will run more in tandem with the process Earth is going through itself. And a lot of you get distracted by what's happening around you, what's happening on the planet. You think, I've got to go into this system and figure out a new way.
Right.
We would say, well, that's wonderful that you have a desire to figure out a new way. That truly is wonderful, that you have a desire to figure out a new way. But first, go within and feel that new way within your own body.
Just to reiterate kind of what you said, it's not so much outside of ourselves. Everybody needs to kind of do their own work. And then things will naturally fall into place without even having to do the work, so to say?
Yes, this is the Pleiadians here, yes. There is a natural evolution that occurs. And truly, it's not even really breathing in the energies of your higher selves, because you already are your higher selves. You already are. It's recognizing the truth of that. So sometimes you will use the illusion of, I'm going to breathe in the energies of my higher self to help yourself understand. This goes back to labels and categorizing, you see. So this helps your third dimensional mind, mental body. The mental body begins to accept the idea of breathing in the energy of the higher self, because the third dimensional mental body sees the higher self as above. So the mental body would think, so I've got to breathe it in to be able to integrate, but the truth is you already are your higher self. So you start to access more and more the energies of your higher self in your entire chakra system, especially the lower chakras. A lot of you have a very easy time now accessing the energies of your higher self in your upper chakra systems. This is why your thinking has changed. This is why a lot of you are beginning to report more paranormal and metaphysical kinds of experiences, why you're able to easily communicate about it, and why you're connecting more in a heart-centered way with one another. The reason your physical reality has not yet really shifted to show all of that work to you is because a lot of you haven't done that integration work in your lower chakras. So a lot of you are running what we would call kind of a third, fifth dimensional split in your experience, where your higher self is operating the upper chakras, your ego self or your third dimensional self is operating your lower chakras, and you're not able to effectively co-create in a fifth dimensional way yet. Now that's fine. We don't see that as problematic. We simply see that as it is right now. But in giving you this, that helps you all remember, well, I can open up to the energies that exist in my lower chakras that are of a fifth dimensional vibration and above. It's really important for you all to get that, to stop vilifying anyone on your planet right now and stop choosing sides. Because as soon as you choose a side in any conflict, you become part of that conflict, even in your ideology. If you sit in your thoughts and you think, all right, we'll use what's happening in Gaza right now. This may not be relevant when this airs, but right now it is. If you say, all right, Israel's bad in this situation and Palestine is good,
right.
You're
feeding it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So instead, you've got to say, I'm going to recognize all the players as universal beings of love and light.
Yeah, I've noticed that with people asking me, well, what religion are you? And they're all, you know, what political party are you? And I've noticed just myself now consciously just not taking part.
Yes, and divide and conquer is part of the enslavement meme.
Yeah.
So you begin to rewrite your programming there, and you can start transcending the need to choose a side, choose a group.
Right.
You know, those groups were created in part when you talk about religion or government, and you have your different parties or your different versions, created in part because you all were feeling so isolated, separate, and alone. So you banded together in these groups to feel a deeper connection to God. Because your understanding was, God is an energy outside of me. So let's band together and at least be in our separation from God together. So now as you're experiencing yourselves as source energy, well, you don't need those groups any longer.
Right.
They're not your identity. They're not your safety. They're not going to save you. They're not going to do any of those things you believed, and sometimes believed to the extent where you would act it out as truth. So it's not that it wasn't true in those lifetimes. It always was.
Right.
It's just no longer the reality you're playing in. Yes, it's all an illusion. We're an illusion.
Right.
We are no more real than you are. You are no more real than we are. However, your desire to have an experience, Source's desire to have an experience, creates the illusion of reality that becomes real. So it doesn't really matter that this is all a holographic experience. And in fact, what we're seeing is that piece of information at times is being used to empower you, and then it's also being used to disempower you.
Okay.
So it's very important that you look at when it is you're still being manipulated by those agencies outside of you that want you to feel small, separate, unimportant, insignificant. Because that's how some of you interpret it when you hear that you're just a holographic projection of light, which you are. You hear just instead of amazing holographic projection of light, allowing itself to imagine it is in third dimensional density, having a real experience, which you are. Yes. Source energy itself transcends that entire holographic experience and understanding. So all of universes, all of creation is holographic in its nature.
So, obviously the Pleiadian energy, Pleiadians are aware of this. Is there a time when I'm assuming humanity's going to have to, all of humanity is going to come to this realization, and then is it like you just described it? We all know it, we all are aware of it, and we still choose to play the game? Or?
It will be a part of your integration and reascension experience. And as you fully integrate this truth, that you are in a virtual reality here, which is a reality as well, that simply allows you more access to do more with your reality.
Having that information.
Yes, because then you really get, I'm just making it up as I go along. I really have integrated that now. That allows you then to begin making up bigger and different and brighter realities for yourself, and that's what the fifth dimensionals have access to. That's what the fairy realm is like. They understand themselves to be physical projections of light. They completely have integrated that truth. So they play in the physical, they play in the light body form, they play in both at once, or they play it out individually and have a lot of fun in that expression of energy. That's where you're headed.
Right.
Now, often you will perceive that you live your lifetimes in a linear experience. So you'll say to yourself, my past lives, you call them past lives because you believe they happened at a date that existed prior to this current date. The truth is you're living all of those lives concurrently. You have many lifetimes experiences you're living in what you would call future moments in time. Just take a breath as you're processing that piece, right? We want all of you listening to take a breath on that piece, because when you begin to access this truth, that all of your energy is incarnate on all of these timelines right now, and that's the way we like to frame it. These are timelines that are occurring, separate experiences. You begin to see the multidimensional nature of reality. Suddenly you're here, 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 here. You're in all of these places at once, having experiences, being male, being female, being strong, being weak, being a victim, being a villain, being a hero, heroine, on and on and on, being an earthling, being a Pleiadian, being a third dimensional, being a 10th dimensional. Right, you're all of it right now. As you're integrating your higher self and reascending into the fifth, you're beginning to gain all of the data that's stored from all of those experiences that are currently happening. You're also, as you're gaining access to those experiences, able to alter those experiences. So you're not just integrating your higher selves right now and reascending in this moment. Every version of you that has ever existed is also integrating its higher self and reascending. You're in the process of creating a new universe. Well, you could only do that as a hologram.
Right. Which I was going to ask. So basically, we're changing time. If we were to go back in time right now and see the past lives, as opposed to if we went back in time yesterday and saw those past lives, it would be a different experience?
That's correct, yes. And because you have altered your consciousness since yesterday, you wouldn't recognize the difference. That other, what you would have accessed yesterday, no longer exists.
Right.
So that's happening for all of you right now.
Right.
You used to tell a particular story about your past.
Right.
You now tell different stories about your past, but you don't know that you're telling a different story about your past.
Right.
Because you no longer are the version of you that was telling the other story about your past. Yes.
So basically, when you get into that,
this is Nora laughing here. Sometimes I just have to break out.
When it comes to your idea of karma, there is a lot of manipulation that's gone on in the explanation of it, and it was used to control because there was a lot of violence going on.
Right.
So from the human 3D level, from the ego level, this is how it was interpreted. But because you're down in density and you're playing this game of separation or the illusion of separation, you still want to present yourselves with some of the concepts. So you're giving the information to yourselves in the best way that you can process it from this level. So we would say when you think of the karmic wheel, it is a story or a version that is the best that you can process from that third dimensional mental level. Is it how things really work? No.
Okay.
It's as close as you can get from the process of the linear mind.
So if the time is, you just explained time is an illusion, and kind of all of these lives are happening simultaneously, would it be safe to say that what we're learning in this lifetime right now is affecting prior lifetimes or future lifetimes?
Absolutely.
So,
and not only your lifetimes, but also all life in the
right.
universe. And this is in part why it's such a special time that you are going through this particular period, because there is so much growth that is happening, and you are really having to learn and work with compassion. And how you learn and work with compassion is sent off to all life throughout the universe, and the information is a game changer. And why we say this is because Earth is kind of a melting pot for galactic issues. Earth is unlike any other planet in your system, in your galaxy, really. It's a grand experiment in which genetic material from thousands of worlds was deposited in order to play out some of the galactic issues on a smaller scale. And along with all this genetic material are all the emotional components, all the things that you have experienced in all of those lifetimes, and we call Earth the planet of emotion. So you've got a huge range to work with, and it is in a sense a blessing and a curse in that you have many emotions to kind of sequenced together in order to get your way out of the lower densities, in order to elevate your consciousness, but also because they are so extreme, you also can fall into the trap of getting stuck, in a sense. So as you have both experiences of the positive and the negative in this realm, you hold a lot more compassion, because all of you have had those times where you felt that lower resonance, that lower frequency, that lower emotion, and you know that it can feel really challenging and really hard. So the way that you experience compassion and the intensity of that particular frequency is so much stronger than it is experienced in the higher realms, that you actually are teaching the rest of us throughout the entire universe, including the higher realms, how to experience compassion with more depth.
I understand.
And that's sometimes hard for humans to kind of wrap their mind around, because again, you have this hierarchical idea that beings in the higher dimension are better than.
Right.
We're just different. We're just playing in another game. We're just playing with a different set of rules and having a different kind of experience. But remember, as we said at the beginning, we are all part of source energies, and as such, you are able to access that information at any time. It's never something that is separate or kept from you. You limit it from yourself as you play down in the game in order to play the game. Yes, there were beings from the Sirius star system who participated in events in this solar system, and they are still participating in events in this solar system. At the time of Atlantis, the fall of Atlantis, they were participating on Mars. All right, and many of the Atlanteans had interactions with them, direct interactions. And with the fall of Atlantis, it was a good opening for them to once again participate in Earth activities. They had participated much earlier and kind of abandoned the project in a sense. And in many ways, the consciousness at varying times on the planet was too high for them to do exactly what they wanted to do. So we are going to give you an answer. We're going to give you two versions. And the first is that it's important to take the bits and pieces that resonate with you and leave the rest behind.
Okay.
We are giving you a version of history. It is not the only version of history. History is always colored by perspective. Truth is always colored by perspective. The only place that truth isn't colored by perspective is up at source level, and at that point it's nothing but raw data. And you have every variation and nuance of every perceived recording of an event there is. And so you literally choose the one that you want, that fits with creating the vibrational experience that you want to have. So if you want to have an experience in which you get to play the victim, you're going to choose a version of history that supports that.
Right.
And, vice versa. We want to take just a moment to talk about how time and creation work, because if you don't understand this, the rest of it falls a bit flat.
Right.
So every now moment that you experience is based upon an agreed upon set of circumstances that you collectively agree to. All right, these are the things that have gone on a planet. We've had World War I, we've had World War II, this has gone on, that has gone on. And then you have your own personal history that you say, this is my past, this is where I grew up, this is the kind of relationship I had with my mother, my father, my siblings. And what you do is move from now moment to now moment to now moment. So you move from agreed upon set of circumstances. And then you string them all together and give yourself the illusion of time. And you do this, and we didn't talk about it earlier, but we feel like we need to bring it up now, because these are key concepts in understanding and bringing yourself out of the victim mentality. And whenever we talk about a lot of the quote-unquote control mechanisms that are going on the planet, when you understand this structure that's underneath it, you can move out of that victim consciousness.
Right.
So one of the beautiful things of 3D was the illusion of linear time. And part of the reason time exists is because, as we said at the beginning, as you enter into density and you create these programs of the mind to keep you in the third dimension, these ideas and perceptions of limitation, if you didn't experience immediate manifestation, you were able to keep yourself in the game longer. If you did immediately manifest, you'd have a lower thought, you'd create it as a reflection, and you would most likely create a death scenario. Out you go, and you have to start again. You'd have to incarnate again.
Okay.
So the lower the frequency, the slower you actually move through time. You scientists haven't quite caught this yet.
Yeah.
But frequencies don't move through time and space at the same rate.
Yeah. No, it definitely feels like time is speeding up.
Yes,
for everybody.
and that's because you're vibrating at a higher rate, so everything is compressing. Now, if you're creating something out of a lower vibrational stance, all right, and it is amplified by extremes of emotion, either extreme joy, and if it's a lower emotion, it's usually an extreme fear, then it is pulsed out with great intensity and reflected back to you. And the lower vibrations take longer so that you have an opportunity to elevate your consciousness so that you don't have to create that lower vibrational experience. You don't have to create the accident or the death, all right? You can elevate yourself, because in order to create, you pulse out frequency, the universe matches the form, and you have to be in resonance with it in order to experience it. So now, as you're creating moment to moment, you, from the third dimensional level, only are perceiving one version of reality, but there are multiple and infinite versions of reality going on concurrently. And this is the beauty of 3D, that you get to limit it down to one, and you don't see what's coming. Right. So it also affects your choice in frequency. And
just to jump in, is this is on an individual level and collective, or is it one or the other, or?
Well, it's in a sense both, because you have, again, infinite variations. So think of it as the now moment being a circle, and then the agreed upon set of circumstances is a triangle, or two triangles. There's a big one for the collective consciousness, and then a small one for your personal choices. You could actually move to a now moment that has a vastly different resonance, because each of these triangles has its own unique frequency. And it's a blending of the collective energy and your personal energy. And you could put yourself on a version where, say, World War II didn't happen. It's possible, but there is an aspect of you that won't do it, because to enter into that reality, the result of that frequency is going to be so vastly different, it would destroy the illusion of the game for you.
Right.
So you wouldn't choose it. Now, you decide to project yourself on a now moment that you can be of the most service. You may find that you are on a version where, say, the collective is participating with a lot of lower frequencies. It doesn't mean that your personal reality has to be one of misery and suffering. You can experience joy and lightness, and that is often the service that you're bringing, is showing others how to experience more light and joy. It's what needs to be brought to that now moment. So you can put yourself on something that is vastly, vastly different, but most of the time you make small steps. Think of it as a giant sphere, and then on this sphere are all of the now moments. It covers the entire sphere, and you can go anywhere, in any direction that you want. But for the sake of the game and the continuity of the illusion of the game, you make small changes. Sometimes you all will make bigger leaps, all right? And often you will see this in healing. That you will choose a now moment in your personal reality, that tumor or that genetic distortion is no longer present in a matter of moments. You will put yourself on another now moment in which that isn't the agreed upon set of circumstances. It is changed, and you experience that as the miracle.
Because intent, of course, is the basis by which all energy is created. It is first a part of your structure as an intention, and an intention begins as an idea. It begins as something within your energy body you wish to see manifested or created within your reality.
So intention is the fuel by which these technologies are engaged. They may be engaged by the highest intent of a love frequency, or they may be engaged through a one consciousness, through lower vibration as well.
I see. So it's kind of they're kind of neutral, basically. They're going to just serve the intention of the user.
We would agree with that statement, and we would add to that, yes, because in a balanced and harmonious environment, all energy is neutral. And many human beings do not feel they would be in agreement with this. They feel that in a society of peace, love, and harmony, there would be a higher dominant frequency that was always at play. And we would say that your very core of being and the core of Mother Earth Gaia and the essence of the universal energy is to neutralize the light and dark, the yin and yang, the good and bad. But there's a basis for that neutral energy. And that basis for that neutral energy is the consciousness by which holds it. So if that consciousness is forming for an intent of the highest good, and they are neutralizing that energy to that highest good, that is where the technology serves from the highest good.
It's kind of like a hammer. It can be used to build, or it can be used to smash.
Yes. We are pleased to also remind you that your souls are all connected as one. So what your brother is experiencing within this physical reality, although it may seem very specific to what their expression of energy is, it is all the same. It is a mirror of what you are here to serve through your karmic energy in order to heal and reconnect as a one consciousness.
And whatever's physically manifesting in our realities, our lives, the fight with the girlfriend or the argument with the brother, then if we address those first before looking to stop the war or other things, these sort of what some people would call petty day-to-day activities, if we can find balance and harmony in those things, then that will directly affect the greater, larger human picture.
Yes, we would agree with that. We would say that the council would clarify this further in saying that the frequency that you hold is the basis by which the dominant frequency can be held as a one consciousness. So where the ascension timeline is most critical in this current time that you stand within, in linear time, we would say, is about the frequency that you hold as a singular being in connection to the energies that are a part of your soul in this lifetime. The basis by which you bring the frequency to those connections is the basis by which you reconnect as a one consciousness. We often speak of the heart chakra and the heart-centeredness that is a part of your being by which you will connect through. And we wish to always remind human beings that this is the first avenue for that consciousness reforming. But you must consider that that heart-centered consciousness must be a part of every interaction within your daily world in order to maintain the frequency as a singular being to reconnect to others. The heart chakra is always sending a signal. It is always receiving a signal. It is a very integral part of your operating system, in addition to what we have mentioned earlier as the mind. It is always reaching out to another and always assessing where the frequency must be neutralized. The neutral frequency is always the key. So let us give you an example. If you are connecting with a human being in this time, and that human being is a part of your soul's experience, and you feel as if that human being is at a lower vibrational frequency. Many human beings would say, I should turn my back on this human being because they are at a lower vibrational frequency than myself, so I should not associate with this human being, and is not capable to heal this relationship of lower nature. We would say to open your mind to a new aspect of that healing through the heart chakra. And how you begin to understand that the way that you connect in a physical way with this being is the way in which you adjust the frequency to a neutral state between the two of you. So, if you are of a higher consciousness than this other human, doesn't mean that you have to keep this human being within your energy field. If they are causing you harm, we would say no. But it is about resolving that energy in such a way that you bring the neutrality of higher consciousness to the entire energetic wrapped around the energy of the connection of the heart chakra. That's the basis, you see, for this reconnection we speak of to the one consciousness. It's about bringing the neutral energy to a higher space, to a higher dominant frequency. And in looking at yourself as the engager of that frequency in your own physical reality, that is the best place to start in order to heal the entire human consciousness.
Right.
Yes.
So we have had beings and records of beings on our planet, for example, Jesus or Buddha or even Muhammad, who have had these great powers, these great abilities to manifest, to do things. What density would you classify these beings in, and did they start off in third density and then they evolve into, say, fourth or fifth density within this planetary constraints, I guess? How would you define them in their density?
In all of those cases, they do come from a higher density. Most of them fourth, with exception of some entities that have been your teachers coming from fifth. But that is their consciousness. When they are born onto the Earth planet, into an Earth physical body, they are, for all intents and purposes, third density beings. But the great thing of Jesus or Muhammad or Krishna or all of these entities that you experience as third density gods or teachers or the greatest of magicians for some of your mindsets, these entities showed you the prowesses of third density beings. These entities showed you a peek into the fourth density consciousness. This is why they seem to be such extraordinary energies. They integrated more portions of their own higher fractal consciousness into their physical reality of the lower fractal consciousness and showed you what instantaneous manifestation could be. Now, what most humans are not understanding about this point is that in that moment, all of you could have done what Jesus was doing had it not been for the collective resistance. In fact, you can do everything that Jesus once did now, in this moment. But because of your beliefs and resistance, it is very infrequent that this occurs.
I see. And so that, in essence, that collective belief is sort of what's keeping this collective reality intact. So if someone were to sort of stand out and evolve into fourth or fifth density consciousness, and the collective hasn't gotten there, would they just leave this reality altogether? Would they die or ascend, so to say, separately from the collective?
Let us ask you one question. In your biblical terms, in your own terms of history, what happened to Jesus? He was not well accepted. So for the most part, the collective consciousness has a way to flush those energies out. But Jesus was not with you in the fourth density time period. You are now all entering and have entered quite well the fourth density. Entering comes in the points of perception. Once an entity manifests themselves fully into that fourth density consciousness, integrates more portion of the higher fractal consciousness, they will start to experience the greater experience. Be damned if any others agree or do not agree.
Right.
That is not the question here in fourth density.
So many people, the second coming of Christ, they use this term, the second coming of Christ, doesn't necessarily mean the individual being is going to show up on the planet and, save the day, so to say, but it's a collective consciousness of humanity is entering into this
In that essence, when you are looking at the terms of second coming of Jesus or Christ, yes, this is what you are speaking of. It is the reintegration of your abilities to be as Jesus was. But in the term Christ consciousness, this is something a bit different.
Okay.
There are collective groups of higher density beings that interact with your planet all the time.
I see.
We are one entity within a larger group of energies that co-create certain experiences with humans. Your Christ consciousness was a manifestation of a collective consciousness in order to help directly humans understand their potential to be as I am, but to be much more. These similar words are spouted from the Bible, but it is a representation of what the Christ consciousness is. We will show you what you are capable of. We will show you that if you desire the greatest of expansion, you may have it. And this is what Christ consciousness is. And for instance, looking into the Christ consciousness, perhaps it is not fair to deem it the Christ consciousness. Many great entities came from this consciousness to your collective. Jesus was one of them. As you have expressed, Buddha, Krishna, Mohammed, all of these great teachers who have showed you both miracles and the greatest way of thought process and the greatest way of heart, those entities come directly from this collective consciousness.
I see. So, in essence, like in the past, we've had channelings from the Pleiadian collective or Arcturian energies, Arcturian collectives. This collective consciousness, similar to our ET consciousness, it's its own kind of consciousness. Maybe not necessarily from the Pleiadian star system, but it's its own kind of collective beings who carry this frequency.
Yes, this is a very fair term, but to expand perhaps a small part of that,
yes.
A collective is any entities that are in a co-creative effort. And by co-creative effort, what we mean, their excitements align through synchronicities of being able to join their energy for one common purpose. So what we are saying, for example, 100 entities spread throughout 1,000 star systems come to the forefront to express, we desire to help humanity. We desire to help Earth and humans in the planetary consciousness with whatever means possible. Now, their physical bodies may join in one area for a meeting or a group connection, but in the essence, their collective consciousness is much greater than this. Their collective is the essence and sum total of all of their fractal consciousnesses. Combined, they are able to think a thought. They are able to think a purpose for a better scenario to connect with humans and create such a scenario through instant manifestations. This means that in your Jesus landing, where Jesus came to your planet, that Christ collective consciousness desired to show you through example in the area of Jerusalem, in the area of Israel, to show those people through their own beliefs of the ancient Hebrew Bible of what was possible and how to reconnect a different mindset through a population that was controlled through fear. So they manifest the physical incarnation of Jesus. It was not one entity that said, I will come into Earth and be this entity. It was the collective consciousness's thought process, their co-creative excitement that helped form an energy that came into an incarnation to be a human being.
One of the things that we've said to many people sometimes that ask questions about this is that from the perspective outside of the Earth, or from a fourth density perspective, let's say, this idea of the sharing of DNA and the shaping of cultures using DNA is actually a very natural process. It's kind of like pollination on your world. And when you look at it, when you remove the victim-perpetrator idea, which is really only applicable in a very polarized third density reality, then the whole paradigm changes, actually. But the question then is, why? Why do people have these experiences of being a victim and things such as that? Why do those buttons get pushed? Well, when you are a third density species, in a sense you can say there are many passages, spiritual passages, that you have to go through in order to evolve your consciousness on the way to fourth density. One of those passages has to do with the healing of the clinging to the idea of victim and perpetrator. And many civilizations get stuck there for millennia. And so when you have the situation with the Zetas and the so-called abductions, it triggered the same issues humanity has been playing out for so many thousands of years, but this time from space. Are there victims? Are there perpetrators? And on the individual level of those who were claiming abduction, the reason it's happening is because they have to pass through that gate in order to shift their consciousness and integrate the polarity within themselves. And then on a collective level, it happens on a collective level as well, that changing of the paradigm. And therefore, a passage into fourth density can be made, or one of the steps of the passage.
So without the Zeta abduction temporary detainment experience, then we wouldn't even have the opportunity to heal that wound, to move into fourth density.
Exactly, or you would have recreated something else.
Some other
basically.
scenario.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
we would have. But at least we got to have it in that way so we could connect to our cosmic family.
Exactly.
As opposed to, making another story on Earth.
Yes, because in the Orion civilization, they didn't create the healing of that through the ET contact. They created it through a domineering empire.
Right, and that was the Orion Wars?
Yes.
Was the Pleiadian, your society, involved in those wars?
Shamefully, yes. We're making a joke.
Right.
Now, again, those conflicts lasted for a very, very long time. So there was a period of time when my species was very young, that our mindset was kind of like a teenager in your human counting. You know, gung-ho, do this, jump in without thinking of the consequences.
Right.
And so we did that, and as you say in your vernacular, got our asses kicked. And that brought up the issues of the guilt and all that kind of stuff that we had to work on as a species in order to make our shift. So in that way, there's nothing extraneous.
It's been said that humanity is the sixth hybrid race.
The hybrid children
So the hybrid children,
are
they the sixth race?
the
or
precursors of
the
that.
precursors. So
They're bridging that. They're kickstarting that for you.
So once they start interacting with us in the physical sense here on Earth, through our interactions with them, through our reproduction with, creating, offspring, that will create a new DNA strand?
In a sense, it is a little bit more loose than that. You have already also begun becoming this sixth hybrid race.
Right.
Yet they are holding such a high frequency. They will be the highest frequency, dense form of that coming to your Earth. But understand that when they do set foot on your planet, some of you will be of the same frequency. Otherwise, you couldn't allow that in.
We wouldn't be able to interact.
Exactly. It will match with some of you already here right now.
Okay.
So you are moving into it very organically. Some of your family lines have been interacting, having interstellar interaction for some while, being, in a sense, guided into that direction.
Sure.
Already in the womb, you could say. And this was your co-creation. You've all been a part of this. Those who have chosen to go into that new wave.
Speaking of the hybrids, to go a little bit more in a little more detail, the sixth hybrid race, it said that the YAHYEL are sort of the keepers of this race. I guess why aren't the Zetas keeping this race? Why did they leave them in the YAHYEL's caretaking?
For they had, in a sense, handed the stick to us.
Yes. Why?
we are of a frequency from birth. That is what you have all signed up to experience more of. We are, in that sense, the perfect guides.
I see.
The most logical link, closest to where you are heading in your next step. Do you see?
I see. I see. So, and where the zetas themselves are quite far from that frequency spectrum.
Yes, and they were focusing more on the completion of the 5 hybrid races, as you have come to understand, were resulting from their project. Understand that these children travel too. They go out and stay over, have sleepovers with friends, you could say.
Oh, okay.
From Sasani and other races, Pleiadian as well.
Oh, okay.
Sirius, they travel around.
And
they have seen a lot of the universe by
Wow.
the time they come and visit you.
And that's why they're the best bridges to our cosmic families.
Correct.
I see, because they've, not only are they made of the same DNA as us, but they've also been educated quite well.
Yes, and they can teach you quite a bit.
It's for humans, I guess we'll get there, but the traditional perspective from a parent is that the parents teach the kids, not the kids teaching the parents. That's the old paradigm, but we're breaking that, I suppose.
That is shifting already.
Yeah.
Your kids right now are very strong messengers.
Oh, yes, they are. Yes, they are. And all we have to do is listen.
Humanity isn't couched in fear.
Right.
And what doesn't make the news? Clean laundry. But dirty laundry, oh yeah, let's get it out there.
Right.
Let's scare the shit so we can build more guns and more walls and more bars. And keep the idea of humanity encouched in the idea system that pays 1%.
Right.
And the rest work. But it worked.
Right. Yeah.
It was a great service and understanding. As many know now, the idea of the alien interaction with that reptilian idea in their idea memories are now changing. And the interactions they thought were that idea scary were not actually that, were they? No. Why? Because the idea memory is given in a moment that serves a purpose for the ascension of the self, as well as the byproduct that of the collective whole. And when abductions are happening and conspiracy happening, it makes the news. News is a what? Awareness. Awareness is expansion. Awareness is choice. Understanding its own individual reality in reflection of itself. Expanding, choosing, broadening, calling bullshit. I like this better. Through that idea evolution, you are here now on the evolution, what? Of the awakening of the species. The grand awakening.
So
Because of all these ideas, to know what you are what? Not to understand what you are.
Right.
Unconditional love. True. Exciting times.
So this sort of infusion, some people look at these times that we're in right now as, biblical times of apocalyptic ideas and all this fear, scary.
That's their world.
Yes, I agree. I'm not buying into that. But
Sure.
Is this all coming out now so we can choose clearly what we don't want?
Yes.
I feel in our political
It
arenas.
is time to know that extraterrestrials have been with us for many years upon your nows, your Earth timeline you are all experiencing now, that you've been interaction. They have offered many idea inventions in different ways, hidden away because of fear, of course, but that was part of the game. We understood that. And now to know that you are part of the whole, part of the one, part of the all. To join the idea in the Galactic Idea Federation in that idea words. Make sense?
Makes sense.
So the disclosure happens in its perfect timing through different idea whistleblowers and politicians to bring it out and say, yes, there is this, there is that, and this has happened and that has happened, and it'll come out. And there will be some friction, we all know that, and that idea during that transitional stage. But then we will know, cool, we're a part of a whole. Awesome. And the awakening continues, mass idea contact, or first contact in your terms, and you've had many first contacts with humans all over the earth, but we're talking in a mass awareness level where all of humanity will be introduced to an alien species when the collective whole is ready for that, moving yourself into Homo Galacticus, being part of all that is.
Right.
Connected as you've always been, but just chose to separate for the experience of limitation. What a fun game to know you're not God, to know you are God. As God said, what fun it is it being God all the time?
Right.
Ta-da! Great game.